Good evening. Welcome inside the ESPN Denver 1600 studios. It is the inaugural edition of the 2018 Coach Bill Tierney Show presented by your hometown Toyota stores right here on ESPN Denver. My name is Tyler Maun, joined by the head coach of Denver Pioneers lacrosse, Bill Tierney. Coach, welcome back. It's so good to see you.
Thanks, Tyler.
It's I can't believe that we're at this stage already, but it's like sunny and springtime weather. It's like Final Four-ish weather out, so hopefully 3 months from now we'll be saying the same thing in Foxborough, Massachusetts. That is where the 2017 season led the Denver Pioneers, and getting set to go in 2018. It's at this time of year. What are the feelings like for you guys, the staff? You've done this so much, but you're still a few days away from the opener. Do you get that excitement still? I mean, maybe not the jitters anymore, but do you get the kind of that nerve feeling going into an opener?
Absolutely. If honestly, if I didn't get those butterflies or that nervous feeling, I'd be out of the game. It's the beauty of coaching is that you only get to play for 4 years in college. You can coach for 44, and it's just like golf. If you have a bad round, you come back and do better. If you have a great round, you want to do it again. So we feel great about our season last year. Obviously, a little bit of chip on our shoulder about a 1-goal loss in the national semifinals, but overall it was a great year.
One of the things I loved in an off-season interview, preseason interview that I read with you, you said so many teams kind of give you that line of, if we didn't win a championship, it's a bad season. It wasn't a bad season. You guys know it wasn't a bad season. It's a 13-4 overall record. You go unbeaten in Big East regular season play, win the regular season conference title, and you make it to the Final Four again, and it's a heartbreaker of a loss the way the season comes to an end. But when you look back at 2017, what stands out most to you?
The enjoyment of that team, and we feel the same with this year, maybe even more so. We really, Matt Brown, my associate head coach, John Orson, my assistant defensive coordinator, Jeremy Noble, who was our volunteer last year, and now Ryan LaPlante, who's our volunteer this year. Honestly, both of those years were so enjoyable. All the years of coaching, just having a group of seniors that bought into what we do, that created and continued the culture that we have, really made it enjoyable. And with that goes the feeling worse when you lose one at the end, and because you feel for the kids. At this point in my career, look, I love winning as much as anybody, but it's really more and more so as the years go on. It's all about understanding that this year is about the seniors and the guys on that team, and you hurt for them when they lose, but you also relish with all the moments that you've had with them.
It was a tremendous senior class last year, and we'll talk about that a little bit as the show goes along today. But talking Denver Pioneers lacrosse on ESPN Denver 1600 is the Coach Bill Tierney Show presented by your hometown Toyota stores. Toyota, let's go places. It is an interesting schedule in 2018, and we'll talk about that coming up a little bit as well. But your guys, we've talked so much over the last couple seasons. You break everything down into 4 quarters. You've got your non-conference play, your conference regular season play, conference tournament in the Big East, and then the national tournament in the NCAAs. And you got really to playing most, I would say, of your best lacrosse toward the end of the year, which is what you want. First round, you knock off Air Force 17-10 at home at Barton Stadium. Go on the road to Hofstra, to West Hempstead, Long Island, and play a Notre Dame team that has been the rival of rivals throughout this program's history. It's a 16-4 win in that game, and the momentum that propelled you within the semifinals, you end up losing to the eventual national champion, which I guess makes you feel a little bit better in that nobody ended up beating Maryland, but that was a stretch of as good a ball as you played all year. And what did that say about that team?
Well, it's as you coach, every game's important. This Saturday's game against Air Force is important as any, but the ultimate is to be playing your best at the end of the year. We had that hiccup with Marquette in the Big East championship play, the semifinal game, and we've started a new emphasis on that Big East tournament championship. I think we've overlooked that a little in the past. We had some really strange things happen the day before that game and the day of the game. But, as I tell the kids, and therefore I can't, we don't make excuses. Marquette beat us that day, actually propelled us to a great spot in the national tournament, and it worked out as well as it possibly could have.
Well, what was strange about that, too, is you played Marquette 2 times in the span of a week. You get a 16-8 victory on the road in Milwaukee to finish out the regular season. Then you play them again a few days later in the semifinals, which is a similar situation to what you had in 2016. But really, it's winning a conference title in the regular season and in the postseason is important. But what you got out of that for the NCAA tournament spot and the run that you ended up making there is the biggest thing of all. But to look back on the way this conference has sort of evolved around Denver. In the last 2 seasons now, you guys have come away without conference tournament titles. And like you said, that's a point of emphasis. But seeing that everybody else has sort of elevated their play, especially when it gets to that tournament level, what does that say about the evolution of the Big East and maybe how teams have started to try to adapt to the fact that Denver's been the big kid on the block in recent years?
Yeah, look, athletics teaches a lot of lessons, and one of the great lessons of athletics is that you never know on a given day. It's the old cliche, but it also highlights what Marquette has done and what the rest of our league has done, that they can lose by 8 goals one day and beat you by 3 the next. And so I think that's a great lesson for our young men to remember about things like respect and hard work and the sun never shining the same way in 2 different days or whatever it might be, and how to handle adversity, which I think they really did well. It was a disappointing loss. It was tough going home early from Providence, but I think at the end of the day, it's made us more determined, just like the loss to Maryland has, to make sure that when we get to that situation again, we've learned our lessons. It
was one less day with Caserta's Pizza for me in Providence, so I'm going to hold that as a little bit of a grudge. But, we'll get back there this year. I'll eat my body weight in pizza anyway. It'll be fine. Take me back. There's one moment in last year's season that really stood out as kind of what I think the generating force behind the rest of the year was. Pioneers go on the road to Ohio State on March 19th and lose that game 16-7, and it really didn't feel that close, and I think you guys would probably feel the same way. But after that, you go on to win 8 of the next 9. The only loss in that stretch is the loss to Marquette in the tournament. Of those wins, the closest win was 5 goals. And it was the day after that game at Ohio State where it seemed like everything kind of came together. And it's almost like a movie scene. I wasn't there for it. I had to travel to spring training in Arizona for my other of 97 jobs that I work. But you guys practice in the rain after a frustrating game. You're in the horseshoe at Ohio State, and things got testy and things got physical. And for you guys as a coaching staff, it seemed like the approach was kind of let these guys go and let them get it figured out. But take me back to that moment and what it did for your team.
Well, the truth was that it showed that our guys cared. I don't think 24 hours before that we had a great showing, and again, credit to Ohio State for that. But it showed that our guys cared. It showed that we had some young guys on our team that were a little bit tired of seeing some of the older guys act the way they were acting or practice the way they were practicing, and had a pretty good fight that day. And when you have those, usually nobody gets too hurt because you got gloves and helmets on, but it showed the spirit. It uplifted everybody. I thought then we left for Baltimore because we were going to play Towson. And other than the last quarter of the Towson game, I thought we were as good as we were all year because that was a team who had knocked us off the year before. The guys played well. We did some really different and interesting things on our spring break. Some of our guys had never seen a crab before, much less eat one, and then we did some escape room stuff, and it was just really an integral week for us to turn this thing around and get going, beating Towson, and then going on to our league play.
I should clarify, it was a 1-goal win over Towson immediately following that Ohio State game, and then from then on, the closest game in that run was 5 goals, the margin of victory for the Pioneers, and it kind of sends you on to a 5th championship weekend in 7 years and all the things that come along with a Final Four appearance. That last 30 seconds of that game against Maryland, it's a 9-8 loss. It looks as if with 10 seconds left, Connor Donahue has you tied up, but leaves his feet, lands in the crease, on the backside of the crease in a play in which nothing's really affected by where Connor lands, but that's the rule, and the rules are the rules, and the goal gets waved off, and Maryland's able to run out the final seconds of that game. Looking back on that matchup and how the season ended, it's a 1-goal defeat. It's a heartbreaking defeat, but there's a lot, especially for the young guys, you can take away from a game like that. So with that being kind of the final stanza, what's the lasting lesson from that matchup?
Well, first of all, we played great defensively. Give Maryland credit. They played us a different way on their defense. They just challenged us to beat them one-on-one. We had 5 one-on-ones with the goalie that we didn't score on. Nate Morano has a great game, has 3 goals, and then hits the goalie in the ankle for 1. The last goal, people could say, oh, if that counted, then it would have been tied. But we got to go back to Maryland's goal as well, which personally was even more ludicrous of a crease call, even though, again, it was the correct call. And hence, after the game, why I appealed to the media and to the NCAA to allow the dive back and maybe put some parameters on it, landing behind the goal line or maybe below the waist of a player or whatever it might be. But we lost a 1-goal game to a very good 1-goal team, and we move on. But I think what it did for us for this year is really allowed us to accentuate how important one ground ball might be, one shot might be, one defensive stance might be, one save might be, whatever, one minute of better coaching might be to get us over that hump.
The offseason starts, a couple days earlier than you'd like, but what, from your guys' standpoint as a staff, how does the offseason progress? You get into it Memorial Day weekend. I would imagine you take a little bit of time off after that loss. But what is the strategy to get not only ready for a new season coming up, but there's recruiting in that time period. Matt Brown starts a box lacrosse league in that time period. I mean, how did the offseason go for you from 2017 to now?
Our offseason really doesn't hit until August 15th. It is go, whether you win or lose. As you know, I've been blessed with 7 national championships, and every one of those, I wake up in the morning after the championship game, and I'm reminded of the old song. It's called "Is That All There Is?" Because your butt is off to recruiting the next day, and after raising that trophy, and it's pretty empty, to be honest with you, but as time goes on and you see the other coaches and you get the congratulations and you feel really good about it, that's fine. You don't really get to decompress until the middle of August when we got 2-week dead period. And then it comes back, and then it's back to you. Recruiting just is overwhelming in the summer, and we just have to keep doing it to continue to attract the kind of young men that we have in the last 8 years to come to University of Denver and represent our school in the manner that they do.
And we'll talk about some of those guys coming up here in a little bit. But the offseason, end of August, beginning of September, you kind of start getting ready for the exhibition schedule, and it's fall quarter for your student athletes and getting back into the rhythm of an academic setting and all that type of stuff. But you played an interesting exhibition game. September 23rd, you play against Tokyo University, and I think the reaction for most people would be, I didn't even know they played lacrosse in Japan. But what was that like? I mean, because it's not just the same as the Canadian national team has been in here. Johns Hopkins on the exhibition schedule a couple years ago. It was Delaware last week to get ready for this week's season opener against the Air Force Falcons. But taking on a team that's, I would imagine, a much different style, definitely a different experience level. What was that experience like for your guys in September?
When I was hired for this job, Peg Bradley Doppus, our AD, asked me to do 2 things. One, make the University of Denver a viable program, and I think we've done that and continue to try to do that, but also put my other hat on as, we like to call it an experienced an experienced person in the game that can help the game grow. I've been playing with and against Japanese kids since 1985, coming to camps and stuff like that. So when we had that opportunity, the fact that it's a non-counter, you don't have to count it towards your maximum number of contests, they're willing to come and give you everything they've got. I mean, those kids played 6 games in 8 days, and they're giving you everything they got. We owe it to the world. We owe it to our kids to have other experiences other than just worrying about game by game every Saturday in the spring. And I think it was a unique and really fun experience.
It's pretty cool. And we'll talk about another aspect of that when we return. It's the Coach Bill Tierney Show presented by your hometown Toyota stores. We're talking Denver Pioneers lacrosse on ESPN Denver 1600. Back after this. 1600. Back after this. 1600. Back on ESPN Denver 1600 talking Denver Pioneers lacrosse with the head coach of the Pioneers. This is the Coach Bill Tierney Show presented by your hometown Toyota stores. Toyota, let's go places. I am Tyler Maun. Coach, the exhibition schedule comes with a different couple of parameters over the fall slate, and your guys play against Tokyo University back in September. One of the things you experimented with and all of NCAA lacrosse experimented with in the fall was the 60-second shot clock, which would give teams 30 seconds to clear the ball over midfield. And the rest of that time, you have to satisfy the shot clock. So it has to be a save, a shot that hits the post, that type of thing. How did that work from your vantage point? And what do you think, first of all, the odds are that it's going to be adopted. It won't be adopted for 2018, but how did it affect the game? I mean, especially in that matchup against Maryland, I think we saw a lot of grinding down. The Terrapins didn't want to give your guys a lot of opportunity, that's the way it goes. I wouldn't want to give your guys opportunity if I'm coaching on the other side either. But how did that whole thing function from what you saw?
Well, just to go one step back on that, Tyler, the NCAA Rules Committee is only allowed to change rules every 2 years. So with lacrosse being a spring sport, you know that there's going to be no rule change this year. It's the second year of the cycle of no rule change. And so you've literally got to do a year and a half ahead of experimenting. So we started out, and everybody did a great job this fall. I'm the coaches organization's representative to the rules committee, so I'm privy to sitting in on those meetings. I have no vote, but I can give my input. And so we needed this fall to do some experimenting. I think after our convention in January, that is pretty unanimous that the coaches want this to go through. We're still not quite sure what the rules committee is going to come up with when it comes to the exact rule as it is. I don't think it's going to be the 30-second separated from the 60-second. I do think to start out with, we're probably going to be looking at a 90-second shot clock that includes within it a 30-second clear, so that if a team clears quickly, they have a little bit more time.
They still get the rest of that time.
Exactly.
So if you clear in 18 seconds, you'll still have 72 seconds to gotcha.
Exactly. As you saw with the Japanese, they didn't know we were playing with that until the day before, and they still did a great job of clearing it, and then they stood outside the substitution box, got all their subs in, and then started stepping in the box so that they had the full 60. So those were kind of things that came up. The other one we experimented with was a straight 60-second shot clock from possession. It was just way too fast. It got really ugly, So I feel good about what was done. I feel confident that the Rules Committee is going to go forward with this shot clock, and I think the future of our game is now at a point where the face-off is straightened out. The shot clock, I hope, will be straightened out. And then one more thing, hopefully in the following 2 years, will be that they do something about the dive.
And what it does, I mean, it removes the jurisdiction, the subjective evaluation of an officiating crew on whether or not a team is stalling, what exactly that's going to take for a certain offense if a shot is deemed to be enough to satisfy the officials in terms of the stall, all that type of stuff, which, not a shot at officiating. We know you're the world's biggest fan of most officials,
That's
Coach,
right.
as are all of us in the broadcasting community as well. But I think it's just when you can remove officials, and I think most officials would agree, you want to do that. When you remove the officiating element from something and you let the players decide it, that's the biggest thing.
No question, and the officials have a really hard job in Division I lacrosse. Even, our game is at the highest level of the game. I know I'd get arguments from the MLL guys because they have more highly skilled players in their league, but when you only practice one time a week and guys are coming from Wall Street and traveling to Colorado to play, you're not getting the best of the best. So I think our game, in the collegiate game, is at the highest level, and to ask three men to go out there, that's part-time for them as well, and to figure out whether a team took a shot that missed on purpose or not is ludicrous. And so this, I think, talking to the officials, they believe that this is a great thing for the game as well. So when you get officials and coaches agreeing on something, you probably should go with it.
It's the Coach Bill Tierney Show presented by your hometown Toyota stores. Toyota, let's go places. We're talking Denver Pioneers lacrosse, and the presence, by the way, of lacrosse royalty in Commissioner Nico Blankenship, who Denver's associate head coach Matt Brown and his box lacrosse league over the offseason. Nico, now I'm surprised he's even here. I mean, with the paydays and the endorsements and stuff that come along with that job, presumably he doesn't even need this gig anymore.
And his cousin, who's going to be a multimillionaire, the kicker for Clemson.
Right, yeah, exactly. Rodrigo with the glasses, and it's impressive.
Georgia,
yeah, Georgia.
Sorry about that.
That's right. Sorry, Commish. Jeez Louise. Coach, let's talk about the 2018 season. We'll get started this Saturday against the Air Force Falcons, a team that your guys have beat in 10 straight. Air Force went through a really tumultuous offseason. offseason. They had a hazing scandal that were kind of light on details with that, but there were members of the junior and senior class that were suspended, coaching staff. It seems like everybody's back, but they played a tough game Saturday, kind of got whooped up by Duke in their season opener, but it's still a team, we've talked year after year, service academy teams you can't take lightly, the way they prepare, the way they're disciplined, all that type of stuff. But is it difficult to evaluate what this Air Force team is going to be like going into Saturday, given that offseason?
It really is difficult, and the problem being is we don't know a couple of things. We don't know who's going to be playing for them. There were still some guys suspended for last week. We don't know if head coach Eric Saramet is going to be there or not. He was not there last week. We don't know where we're going to be playing because of the weather forecast. We might be playing indoors. We might be playing in Falcon Stadium. There's just so many different things that are still up in the air about this game that it's been a great lesson for us to, and it has kind of allowed us to get our guys to concentrate on what we do and continue to try to do it. They have no scout on us, because we haven't played a game. We've seen their film against Duke, and that clearly wasn't the effort that we're going to see this Saturday from Air Force. And I think tumultuous is a great word because as much as that has been tough on them, I think it's also tough on us to kind of not be very comfortable in who and what we're going to see.
That was an 18-4 loss for Air Force in their season opener. That was back on Saturday. It was a regular season opener. Pioneers played an exhibition game at home against Delaware in front of a nearly 2,000-strong crowd at Peter Barton Lacrosse Stadium. It's a 19-12 win for your guys. You lead 14-6 at halftime. Colton Jackson has 4 goals. Colin Rutan has 2 goals. Ethan Walker has 2 goals. And it's hard to believe that we're 20-plus minutes into the show, and it's literally the first time we're going to say the name Trevor Baptiste. But Trevor goes 17-21. What did you see from your guys? What impressed you? What do you feel like your biggest points of emphasis going into Air Force?
Well, as we've said in the preseason, we are deeper than we've ever been, which is a real blessing. Of our 19 goals, 14 different guys scored goals. So we're a little bit difficult to figure out, who to shut off or who to concentrate on. Obviously, when you talk about Ethan Walker and Colton Jackson and Austin French and those kind of players, Connor Donahue, sure. But of course, when you have the ball 80% of the time in the first half, it makes for a half-field game. And I thought our guys did a really good job of shooting the ball when they had their opportunities. It was just a great day. Defensively, we still have some concerns, but up until that game, that point, we thought we were ahead of the game defensively and a little behind offensively, but just shows that our guys so far have shown that when it's serious, we can get going.
Let's talk about some of the impact guys on this team. I mean, Trevor obviously is going to lead the way in that conversation. He's the best face-off guy in the game. The acronym in lacrosse, the FOGO acronym, face-off, get-off, he's not a guy who gets off the field. Last year he has 12 goals. He's got 32 in his career. He's one of your 3 captains this year. Connor Donahue and Sean Mayle join him there. But he's such a weapon in a way that nobody else in the game is a weapon, because he can stay on, because he is athletic. He's built like a running back. He's got the ability to do so many different things other than be the best face-off guy in the game, and he is the best face-off guy in the game. But to have that as being kind of, you're talented everywhere else, and you've also got the thing that nobody else has in Trevor, what dimension does he add? I mean, when you look at him going into his last year, he's got the potential to be the best face-off guy who's ever played this game. He's going to be on the senior national team. He's the only college player added to that roster. What does he give your team?
Well, as I've said so many times, there's so many things that make a good face-off guy. Quick twitch muscles, fast twitch muscles, strength, knowledge of the position, knowledge of the tactics, understanding the wing play aspect of it, and then being skillful. All those things, those 5 or 6 different things. A lot of face-off guys have 1 or 2 or 3 of those things. He's got all 6, and plus he's a fierce competitor, and yet one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. So what we've got to make sure is that, and it's coming this Saturday, one of the best face-off guys in the country he's going to see is the one he's going to see this Saturday from Air Force. So the other factor that comes in, and I think it really helps us, is the other teams have to spend a lot of time figuring out what their strategy is going to be for Trevor. Last year we played some teams that threw 4, 5, 6 different strategies at him in a game, and he handled them so well. So he knows he's got 2 great players on the wing with Danny Logan and Sean Mail. We can move offensive guys on the wing if he's really having a good day, and we feel good about that. But, if there's any problem with Trevor Baptiste is that as great as he is, he always believes he can be better.
The time that opposing teams spend game planning for Trevor, too, is less time that they can spend game planning for everybody else. And you, of course, have key losses, as every program does every year. But seniors Connor Cannizzaro, Tyler Pace, Max Planning, Christian Bergdorf, those guys among some of the names that are gone. But just with only a few minutes left, we still got so much to cover. But, Coach, tell us a little bit about this freshman class, who comes in, who are names to watch. These guys don't have to play right away, which is really nice for you.
Yeah, we this morning we were putting together our midfields, and we think that right now, early season, we're going to keep these 4 freshmen together. Jack Hanna and Teddy Sullivan and Aaron Boyd and Riley Curtis, and those 4 guys are going to be big-time players for us in the future. Right now, they've just happened to have 8 or 9 other midfielders in front of them that just have more experience. I'm not saying they're better, other than maybe Colton and Connor, but they're just not ready yet. And so those guys plus T.J. Wright will be in the goal at some point during the year, and we think he's fabulous. So we feel really good about this freshman class.
You lead right into what I was going to ask about next. Alex Reddy plays his best ball toward the end of the year as well, and really surged, really came along. Alex is one of the most interesting guys to cover on this team because the athletes that I enjoy the most are the guys that you can tell are always analyzing, they're always thinking, they're always trying to get better. For Alex, I think at times it's been a struggle because he wants to be great, but to take the strides to be great, he's only going to be a junior this year. It's not easy when you're 18 and 19 to figure out how to be great at the highest level of a sport. But toward the end of the season last year, he was like a different guy, and I ran into him a couple days after we got back from Foxborough, and he seemed at peace with how he had finished the season, which I don't think was the case his freshman year. But to see his evolution and what he's been able to accomplish his first couple of seasons, and now not only coming into this year as a more confident guy, he's got a position coach now, which he hasn't really had specifically in the past. Ryan LaPlante comes in and is a guy who can provide him some feedback that maybe he hasn't heard in certain contexts otherwise. But this year seems like it shapes up to be a good year for him.
Yeah, real quick, Alex is very much like Trevor Baptiste in that he never feels like he's working hard enough. And so, we now, as you mentioned, having Ryan LaPlante with us has given him a little bit of a more calm and controlled mental approach to the game, and understanding he doesn't need to see 200 shots a day, 5 days a week to get ready for a Saturday game. And so the other thing that's really helping Alex is, we have 6 goalies on our team right now. The 3 of them are really pushing Alex very hard. It's funny. David Windsor and Josh Matt and T.J. Wright are all very good, and if we had to go into a game with one of them, we'd be fine. Alex has got the experience. He's our starter. He's left-handed, which gives you a little advantage, but we're excited about Alex and how he's going to lead us, but we also know that for the first time we're at that position where we feel deep and we feel very confident that the next guy could go in and do just as well.
If I was the head coach of any other team in this country, I'd be so annoyed listening to this show because it's like, oh, good, Denver has more guys that are going to come out and be that good. That's fantastic. Pioneers will open the season this weekend, coming up on Saturday against the Air Force Falcons in Colorado Springs, whether we're in Falcon Stadium or in the indoor facility. 1 o'clock face-off, 12:30 Pioneer pregame on 104.3 The Fan. I'll be on the call with you for that one. Should have had an hour-long season preview show. We got too much to talk about.
Let's do it tomorrow.
It's a good thing. We'll do it again. Pioneers coming up on Saturday. Pioneer basketball also, by the way, coming up on Saturday. 12:30 will be Pioneer pregame with Brad Thompson over on ESPN Denver 1600. But that'll do it for the first edition of the Coach Bill Tierney Show, presented by your hometown Toyota stores. Toyota, let's go places. Coach, thanks. We'll see you on Saturday.
Thanks, Tyler.
Wrapping things up. Talk to you next week. Wrapping things up. Talk to you next week. Wrapping things up.